Hi everyone, it's Ojay McDonald here, CEO of the Association of Town and City Management. This is again another part of our Blueprint for Resilience series. I'm excited to present to you our issues which we have identified so far through our series through phase one, where we have done our PEST analysis, looking at the implications of COVID-19 on our town centres and our high streets. So I think firstly, what I need to do is just to take you through the process we are going through once again. So we, just as a recap, we are co-creating strategies for local resilience for our members, our partners across the UK, Ireland and wider. So phase one is understanding how the world has changed, looking at some of those key implications of COVID-19. Phase two is then about categorizing those issues as opportunities and threats. And then phase three is when we're able to develop and present actionable strategies which people can take and use as part of wider frameworks which they are developing. So now over the next few minutes, I'm just going through phase one just to highlight some of the issues that have emerged so far in the discussions we've had with our members. So firstly, we have a fast changing political landscape. We have political uncertainty, which it appears to me differs in some parts of the UK and Ireland, depending on where you are, especially across the island of Ireland, where we have two fairly young administrations at the moment. We have this almost this balancing act between health and economy. Politically, we have collaboration happening at all levels politically. There seems to be less attention on some of the big issues which are in the background, like Brexit, like the climate emergency, which haven't gone away. They are still there. But obviously, all the focus for now is on COVID-19. Town centres require strong lobbying. They've always required strong lobbying, but now more than ever. And one comment we had from a member is that while we need leadership, we're not necessarily expecting answers to everything because this is an unprecedented situation. We have elected officials who are really keen to engage with the industry, and we've had high streets being elevated in the political agenda, which is really good to see. There is pressure on governments from all sides to support businesses, especially town centre businesses. So that sums up the political side. What's happening in terms of the economics for town centres and high streets? Well, we have the consequences of phasing out the job retention scheme, the furlough scheme in the UK, and the knock-on impact of that, which could be a sharp rise of unemployment depending on the level of ability for some of those businesses to bounce back and start trading viably once that furlough scheme is phased out. And that then has a knock-on impact on spending across the economy. There's one member suggesting that there's permanent scarring for local economies that will come from COVID-19. We are also expecting the transformation of business models, especially for the consumer industries, where physical distancing might become a thing, certainly over the short term, maybe over the medium term, and who knows for how long. Increased operating costs for all businesses, whatever sector they're in, because of physical distancing and the impact that has both on consumers and the workforce. And actually on the other end of the coin is a surge in latent spending when lockdown ends, as people rush to go get that pair of jeans they've wanted for a long time or get that first drink at the pub. We've certainly seen instances in other parts of the world where local economies have started to reopen and demand in the first few days of some businesses reopening has taken people back by surprise. We have the rapid recovery of the economy expected by some economists. We have an existing model for rents and rates, which is now being put into question, especially in the UK. The asset value of some of the non-domestic properties we use might need to be addressed. There's long-term implications for investment in our town centres, which we don't yet fully understand. We have the knock-on impact of health and well-being on workers, on consumers, depending on how this crisis plays out. and certainly uncertainty over the future of large office space, which could really change the dynamics in terms of our economy spatially and where people base themselves, or if we're looking at a larger group of people working from home in the longer term. Much uncertainty over the future of inbound tourism. We've heard some airlines are drastically cutting back in terms of their workforce and aren't expecting a return to their market for the next 3, 4, 5 years. A sharp increase in people working from home, long-term reduced footfall and spend from commuters, partly because of working from home, displaced retail activity that comes from that. So displacement from some of those big core retail centres out to neighbourhoods and districts. A lot of innovation and creativity from businesses who are in survival mode. A new relationship between bids and councils as they come to terms with the challenge of finances, the challenge of being viable in this new world. So we see how that relationship plays out. Socially, we have polls suggesting that many people will not engage economically, mainly because of the level of fear people have around the virus and the potential for transmission when they leave the house. Now, it has been mentioned by one member that actually the levels of fear is not something which is static. They will change over time, and certainly the levels of fear may differ regionally and demographically depending on where you are, whether you live in a big city, whether you live in a rural area. So don't believe it to be something which is universal across the UK and Ireland. In terms of resilience and recovery planning, it needs to be guided by health and behavioural sciences. Us as place managers will have core skill sets, but it won't always necessarily be on things like health and science. Young people are very likely to be really keen to re-engage with society, to get out there, start working, given that they are at low risk of having this virus in a fairly severe way. Trust likely to become the defining issue for all town centre users. And certainly trust in public transport could well reshape how we view town centre accessibility. Commuters being fearful of public transport with physical distancing, forcing reductions in capacity, and the knock-on impacts of that in terms of how we access town centres, and there being a genuine need to moderate demand for public space, especially with instances such as queuing to get into certain premises, workspaces, businesses, retailers. We're seeing entrepreneurs start to experiment and innovate a little bit more, a real change in mindset in terms of the way they are embracing certain technologies. Despite the reliance on some streaming services, there is an expectation that people still desire experience. Experience still seems to be the watchword for a lot of town centre industries. Communications on coming out of lockdown will be tricky. It's far more nuanced than just saying stay at home. And there will be challenges there in us being able to communicate that properly. So finally, onto the issues around technology, which we've acknowledged. Sharp increase in online sales, no surprises there. Accelerated evolution of things like payment technology and the embracement of different payment technology in order for people to pay using cashless means to reduce the potential for submission. Sharp increase in the use of video conferencing and cloud services, pressure on residential Wi-Fi networks, the consumption of experiences online, the acceleration of existing trends rather than necessarily the emergence of new trends. Entrepreneurs embracing technology, been mentioned before, an increase in the use of smartphone payments, small businesses, less resistance to technological change. Could an app on contact tracing impact consumer behaviour? Technology being used to support physical distancing, the implications of 5G investment, and the potential of smart licensing to reduce the burden on evening and nighttime economy businesses who are going to need support as they start to reopen, given the challenges they face in terms of their viability. I've counted it. It's 53 issues. There's a lot there for us to get through. So next up for us in phase 2, we'll be going through each of these issues and categorizing them as opportunities, threats. Could something be both an opportunity and a threat, or is it neither an opportunity nor a threat? So that's all coming up over the next few days. And then after that, we will look at doing actionable strategies. I hope that's helpful just in terms of starting to generate some ideas. Keep in touch. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much.